Right, Lee, thanks so much for joining Heart Fertility on this call just to chat about Overjoyed and fertility financing, fertility treatment financing rather for our fertility patients. Would you start off by telling us about Overjoyed and the work that you do?
Sure. I'll give a summary of how we founded Ovajoy'd. I last year decided to freeze my eggs so that I'm 36. Well, now I'm 37. Mm-hmm. And I decided to freeze my eggs so that I could have the option of having kids when I wanted to have kids. I met an amazing doctor, fertility doctor at Dr. Matsabisi, who helped me through the process and kind of explained to me the importance of the different ages and what that meant. And I didn't know a lot of the information, and I was shocked at how little of the information I knew about my own fertility and the options that I had as a woman, and how this had affected so many women. So immediately I was like, oh, this is something that I can really make a change for women to have careers and or make decisions for as and when they want. And I went and applied for a loan to freeze my eggs when I saw the cost, and I couldn't get a loan. Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean I can't get a loan? I'm the perfect candidate. And they're like, no, you're a single woman who has no assets, and you might have an income, but what is that? And I was like, well, if I can't get a loan, imagine how many women are struggling to get a loan. And I know this in business, because in business we do investments and loans, and I come from a business background, so especially for women, it's something I'm very passionate about. I should have known it fell into the personal loan space. And then when I saw the interest rates they were giving me on the loans, and I won't go too much into that, I was just like, something doesn't make sense to me here, because even at those interest rates, I was like, I'll pay it, I'm still not getting the loan. So basically I learned from my business partners, who were two women and were just so generous and so amazing in helping me. And so we were like, this is something we have to kind of go and help women with going forward. And that's how we started Ovajoy'd.
Okay. And how do the payments work? Does the patient deal directly with the clinic, or does Ovajoy'd deal with the clinic on the patient's behalf?
So it depends on what the patient wants. The patient's going to take a loan out in their name, but what we found is one of the biggest stresses are making the payment, figuring out when the payments are made, because there's not an amount that the clinic can tell you upfront exactly what it's going to be. They know their doctor's costs, they know their hour costs, but the problem is you don't know how much medication you're going to be until you're on the medication, because each of us are going to respond differently to the medication. And then you suddenly get a lump payment where you didn't know you needed it. You're scared to put your card through. So instead of having that anxiety, and the stress impact your fertility, and it's an important thing for people to know, we like to work directly with the clinic so that it's something you don't have to stress about.
Yeah. So you're able to, if you agree to take a patient on, or to finance or help a patient finance their fertility treatment, you take on the entirety of those costs, whatever they are. So if an IVF cycle, say, costs between 50 and 60,000, and that's what the patient is quoted, you are able to cover that entire amount.
It would depend on what we give the person. So depending on different factors, you'll figure out how much you can loan a person.
Okay.
There's certain regulations and rules around it. And you don't want to loan someone something that's going to put them in real financial trouble afterwards as well. So we work it around what's best for each person. We individualize it.
Okay, that's really great.
Yeah,
okay.
We all end very different.
And how long does the application process take, and how does it work? Say I've received my diagnosis from the doctor that I need to have IVF to freeze my eggs. What's the first step?
So the first step would be to get a quote from your doctor.
Mhm.
And then you would go online and fill in our application form, where we'd be able to know within the next 48 hours if we can loan you.
Okay.
And then between us and you, we work out the next steps from there. But it does take a little bit of time. We are very new, so we are still learning the process and how to do this quicker. And hopefully over time, we'll be able to do this instantly. But at the moment, it probably does take up to a week. But what we have found is generally the holdup isn't on our side. The holdup is on, you can only do it at certain times in your cycle, and whether that's freezing eggs or IVF. So you generally have to wait, and it might not be the right time for you in this cycle. You might want to wait till the next cycle. So we've found that the waiting is more around
the medical
the
aspect
patient.
of the treatment. Okay.
Well, the
So,
yeah.
okay. So on your side, from the time that I put in my application form, it will take about a week for you to let me know if you can approve my finance or not.
Yes.
Okay. What documentation do you need from me?
So generally, and with any loan, you need to give bank statements, so proof of a bank account, proof of a job, so or income, some kind of income, and identification are the
Okay.
main thing. And then we would just want to understand what it's for. A quote, we'll need a quote. And then we do certain credit checks. So we talk you through the credit check that we do, but it's all very held. So we will speak you through everything on the phone. There's nothing that is too onerous.
Okay. I spoke with a patient this morning who I told I would be speaking with you, and she asked what sort of credit score would she need to have in order to potentially be eligible to receive finance from you?
Yeah, and this is a hard one because according to the regulations, you can't give credit to someone who has a low credit score because they see that as reckless lending. And then you're causing more trouble for the person than you are anything else.
Yeah.
So the credit score, it depends. It really does depend on the agency you're using to do the credit score or which credit scoring they want you to do, the patient. We aren't necessarily too concerned about a credit score that, for example, is low because 4 years ago you didn't make a payment on, we all have stories, we all have a history about certain things. It's more that we will ask questions about it and we will need to understand.
Yes.
And I think the transparency and the understanding of that is where it's important. And we will ask you to pay off that other bad debt because there are ways of getting out of a bad credit score and there are ways of fixing a bad credit score.
Yeah.
It's not a hard and fast. It's not like, oh, well, now you've got a bad credit score. Like, the things you can do, and we're happy to help you kind of work on that as well.
Okay, so it's more a question of affordability than what your credit score is.
Yeah, and how much of a bad credit score you're happy to mend.
Okay. All right.
Get you to a good credit score. So we can all get good credit scores. I think a lot of the issues for women is that a lot of the past credit models, traditional credit models, let me call them because I wish they were in the past, are based on secure lending, which means that you would need to have an asset. And women haven't been able to have assets. We haven't really been allowed to own until recently.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a chicken and an egg situation that we're trying to more go like, that's not real world anymore.
Yes.
They're around this. And there are other things we see as assets that maybe a traditional bank wouldn't.
Okay, that makes sense. So what happens if I've received a finance from you and I want to settle earlier? I suppose the repayments would be monthly, right?
Yes, so we do monthly repayments. Generally, we like to debit your bank account.
Okay, and how long is the repayment period?
Depends on the amount of money and your ability to pay back. Generally, it's between 12 months and 24 months. We don't like to go longer than that. So we work it out. We work out interest rates generally on an annual basis. So we just bring it down based on how many months. So you'd pay less.
All right. And would I still be liable for the rest of the interest?
No, not necessarily. I mean, if you're going to pay 2 months early, it doesn't really help us because a lot of our costs are upfront.
Okay.
So it's more that's more of an issue. But if you're going to pay like 6 months early, of course, we won't make you pay the full amount.
Some Discovery Health, for instance, covers up to 75% of their comprehensive type covers of fertility treatment. So, and but that still needs to go through an approval process.
Yes.
So
we've had
I may apply for finance with you, not knowing whether or not my medical aid will cover and how much they will cover. So it could turn out that I don't actually need as much finance from you as I originally thought I did. So I just want to check that there's a way that we can work around that.
Yes, so that is very important because a lot of the women we've covered are covered by medical aid, which has been actually interesting because I didn't realize the massive gap between paying and when the medical aid pays you back. I'd assume the medical aid pays it at first. So what we suggest is you speak to your medical aid because the medical aids are really good and they will give you a letter that says we will pay them. So then you use that as your collateral.
Okay.
And you say when they pay, we'll work out the months and then we'll work out when they pay you back. But generally they tell you when they're going to pay you back upfront. We just might flag you. Have you spoken to your medical aid?
Before going ahead.
Yeah. And a lot of and the truth is with IVF it's complicated. Firstly, with IVF it's more complicated because the medical aids, they're quite strict on their rules. How old you have to be, how many rounds they'll do.
Yeah.
But it isn't cut and dry. But yeah, we here because we understand women are not, we are individual humans.
It's not a one size fits all.
It's not a one size fits all. That's a better way of saying it.
And with IVF, like you've said, it's a bit complex in that it's not a one size fits all or a one-time thing necessarily, with any fertility treatment for that matter. If I've received finance from you for, say, my artificial insemination procedure and it doesn't work out, is there an opportunity for me to approach you for finance again, even while I'm still paying off the other treatments?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely, and it would be a quicker process.
A quicker approval process.
Approval process, especially because and it's funny because people are like, well, what are you gonna, a lot of men ask, sorry men, but a lot of men ask, yeah, but what are you gonna do if they don't pay, if the woman don't pay you back? You can't take their child. And I'm like, well, the woman will pay.
Yeah.
Like we're not difficult, and we actually 80% more women pay back their debts than men.
So you found that women are more credit worthy than men. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is exactly, you're right. That is exactly.
Okay. So what does the finance cover? Do you only pay clinic fees, or do you also cover pathology fees and agency fees? Like for instance, if you are using an egg donor, so if you're having egg donation treatment with your IVF, there is an agency fee that is due to the egg donor agency that recruits and manages the egg donor. So it's not a medical aspect of the treatment. It's not a medical treatment, but it is a part of the cost of the egg donation program. Do you cover that as well?
So I'm going to cover that in 2 different answers. We haven't actually had an applicant yet who's done donation.
Okay.
I understand that is quite there's a lot of legalities around it. I understand it is a very costly process. We haven't gone through that at all yet. there's no reason I can see why we wouldn't give a loan for that. It's all part of the process. I think, again, it would come down to the same factors as affordability. Potentially those loans maybe will be a bit longer. I'm not sure what that would look like, but there's no reason I can think of off the top of my head that's a different risk than giving someone a loan for AI, which is a completely different cost.
Do you cover pathology fees? Because
Yes.
that's a third party cost.
I think often an unseen cost is that. And so we like to always give a little bit of a buffer.
Okay.
So we like to say, cool, you're asking for 50. Have you done this in the process? Because these might come up. We're going to give you a loan for this amount, and then we can see like kind of how it plays out. What I think we do a little bit differently is we have support. So we speak to you. We've got a direct WhatsApp chat. We have also, you get a one-on-one session that's paid for by us with a fertility coach, because we understand there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of unknown, and that unknown creates a lot of stress and anxiety, which again is not good for the process you're going through.
Yes.
It affects your fertility negatively. We all know what anxiety does. We've all heard what stress does in our daily lives. It's like on every article and it has a very massive effect on your likelihood of the chance of your fertility.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's a big, big, big focus of ours.
Okay, so it sounds like you are holistic and flexible in the way that you help patients finance their treatments.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a minimum income amount that a patient should have?
I think that's hard kind of to gauge. What we are doing now, like I said, we are new, so we are playing. But what we are going to do now is a fund me portion of our website, which is where you can get someone else to help you with the financing. So you can get someone else to help you pay back your loan.
Okay. So would this be like friends and family or strangers? Would it work similar to a GoFundMe?
No. So it will be, they'll sign.
Okay.
They will take the loan in your, like, for you, basically.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's an interesting
feature. In an ideal world, and I'll give you a little ideal scenario, it would be that, right? That why not? It's like invest in the future, like of me and my family, and I'll, you know what I'm saying? Like for whatever, like friends and family will love to help. They just want to support. They don't know how.
Yeah, that's very true.
And if a birthday presents, instead of a birthday present, you say like, I want donations to me being able to freeze my eggs or whatever. Have IVF. Yeah.
Okay. And if I'm married or cohabiting with a partner, do they need to know that I'm applying? Do I need to apply with them?
We haven't had that complication.
Okay.
Yes, that someone's needed to ask for permission from someone, or that someone's married in community should be an issue. We have had co-partners apply on behalf of, but we haven't had, we actually haven't had people apply together, which is why we're doing that you can get funding from other people, because I think people don't realize, well, you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah, that's the beauty of what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think like I said to my one friend the other day, she was talking about that she wants to freeze her eggs, and I said to her, well, has your partner checked his sperm? They've the kind of forgotten other half of the equation. Yeah. And whether you're it doesn't matter, you're going to need sperm, fortunately or unfortunately, you're going to need, whether you know what I'm saying, like whether you're in a couple with two women, or it doesn't matter, you're still going to need a sperm.
Yeah,
that's still a part of the equation that I think we forget about, even me now. So my next step will be to freeze an embryo, and I now need to get a healthy sperm, and I didn't realize that these donor sites, now you've got to like pay for extra, like for sperm now, and you've like the world that we we don't know anything. I don't know anything about it. I'm a woman. How do I not know anything about
Yeah.
this? Imagine what
Unfortunately, it's just
around you are going through.
it's one of those things that you don't think about because, or that we don't think about because it's supposed to be a kind of natural thing that happens by itself. But that's not reality. And
Not reality. 30% of people struggle with it.
yeah.
And that's spoken about and that's documented on.
Mm,
I can't imagine how many undocumented there are.
yeah. What are your interest rates?
So that's very hard to kind of gauge because it's dependent on a person.
Okay, could you give a range? Because I know that's a concern for a lot of patients that we speak to that are looking at fertility financing, is
Yes.
the interest rates.
It's really like, it is on an individual basis. By law, annually, you cannot charge more than 24%.
Okay, per annum.
Yeah, no matter who's giving you the interest, you can't charge 24% per annum.
Okay, and could you say what the least amount of interest you charge is?
Well, what we try to do is make it very transparent in this is how much you're going to have to pay per month. So you don't have to worry to work out the interest rate. I think so you know what you're in for upfront.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time people are worried about the interest rate because they don't know, they don't understand, well, okay, but what does it mean?
Yes.
Am I just going to forever going to be having to pay and we go, no, here's what you're going to pay upfront for however many months.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you have to say to people that are thinking of freezing their eggs and young, ideally you should be freezing your eggs in your 20s and early 30s. But unfortunately, women that age don't often have collateral for funding or savings, and they could really make use of programs such as yours. Do you offer any support or advice to people within that group?
I don't give advice just because I'm not a professional, but as a woman who kind of feels a little bit let down by a lot of doctors and society, and very supported by by my doctors, but who feels left down by society. I think what we read, what we see, is just know your status. Like there are basic levels that you can find out about yourself very young. Your AMH, different hormone levels, usually hormone levels, your AMH, your FSH, your LH, which you're never told to go and check. So I think if you know those younger, you know what your options are, you know what you need to worry about at different ages to know, okay, this is when I need to know when to freeze my eggs by. I think freezing the eggs would have been a great investment for me when I was younger. I wish I had done it.
Yeah.
But then I wouldn't have the story to tell.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, at what age do you think you would have been able to afford to do egg freezing or freeze your own eggs using a facility like Ovajoy'd?
If that existed,
yes,
I would have done it probably in my late 20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had an income at that stage that would have supported or enabled you to take out a loan with a company like Ovajoy'd and keep up with the payments. And
interestingly enough, the people this has spoken to his mothers quite a lot. They're like, I would do this for my daughter. So it's like, for me, I didn't, for me, myself, if I would have done it, it would have been in my late 20s.
Yeah. And how old are the daughters of these mothers, would you say?
No, some are 12. They are forward thinkers. Some are 18. I think from around 20 to 30, any of those moms would. I think it's like, why do you need to worry about it that young? I do hear that. But I think your kids just know, your daughters, like me, just knowing I wouldn't have had to make those decisions younger would have made things a lot less stressful.
Yeah.
You feel like a bit of a clock.
Yes.
Sometimes, like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
And everyone helps you feel it. No one's making you feel less of a clock.
Yeah.
And this would have just made me feel like less of a clock.
Yes, more relaxed. And I think it also affects the way that people date or women date. And of course, fertility preservation is not just for women. It's for fertility preservation is another way of saying egg freezing or freezing your eggs for later use. But it's not just for women, but it mostly impacts women because our fertility rate drops exponentially from the age of 35. So it is something that young women should be looking at. And from my experience with the patients that I meet, it does affect the way that you date, and it affects the plans that you make for your life, even outside of dating, in terms of traveling and studying and just basically living your life, because you have, without the insurance of the frozen eggs, you are living your life with this thing at the back of your mind of when will you have kids? Will you have kids? Okay, you perhaps you feel the need to make a certain relationship work because you're running out of time, and so on and so forth.
And even making the decision, like you say, it's like I didn't know if I wanted kids. I didn't know what I wanted. But exactly like you say, like it affects all these decisions because you always having to speak about it. It's asked in interviews for jobs. It's asked like, yeah, so you're right. It does. It affects it in the back of our minds all the time. So yeah, as an insurance, it's
do you I assume you do, if you cover fertility treatment, do you potentially also cover the yearly storage, the payment? Because if you've frozen your eggs for future use, you have to pay yearly.
I mean, the annual fee.
An annual fee.
To be honest, we haven't been around for long enough to do that. I don't see why we wouldn't. I don't know if it would be worth someone's while, but I don't know why we wouldn't.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But this has been.
If it comes, and again, if this comes up as a constant problem, we'll do it. Like I think, like I said, we want to enable as many women as possible to be able to do this.
Yeah, that's what I love about your product, is it's very inclusive and flexible and individualized. It really takes into account the needs of a person going through a fertility process, whether it's because they are themselves infertile or because they want to preserve their eggs. It's very individualized, and I think unlike other unlike a lot of medical processes, there are things that it's not black and white. You know, you could be halfway through the process and realize that you need more medication, and you might not have that extra few thousand rand in your bank account to pay for that extra medication. And you know, it's very stressful. It can be very stressful for a fertility patient. So I love that you work hand in hand with the patient to make sure that they are cared for throughout their process, and that if you start with them, your intention is to finish well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have any like closing remarks or anything you'd like us to know?
It's been a lot easier than we thought it would be. To actually give the money and get paid back, and it's been very rewarding. It's been, and like I said, I would just, like, my one thing is, and I say it to everyone, like, just know your status.
Yes.
Just know your levels, know where you are. It just gives you choices, and the more choices we have, the more things we can do in our lives.
Yeah.
So but thank you. And and I think Heart Fertility, as we met them, if I can just say, like, what we loved about them was how holistic their approach is. They're a clinic that understand this is not just a medical procedure.
Yeah.
We love working and partnering with clinics who understand that.
Yeah, that's an important part of what we do at Heart, and that's part of why we wanted to speak to you, because it can be the financial aspect of the fertility journey can be stressful, and I think like finance is such a sensitive thing in any arena, to talk about affordability and, you know, can I afford this? And in actual fact, sometimes with fertility treatment, it's not that you can afford it, it's that you really, really need it. And time is of the essence with fertility. So it's not something you can necessarily save up for 5 or 10 years before you can afford it. So it's wonderful that we can refer to products like yours, and assist patients in, you know, just being more educated in how they can have their financial needs met in their fertility journey. So thanks so much for your time, Lee, and hopefully we can speak again as you progress, and good luck with all that Ovajoy'd is